So welcome everyone to the third talk of our summer session at Mountain Cloud. We've been embodying and exploring practice realization. This hyphen, one compound, one word. What is practice realization? What is the heart of this practice? And how do we realize it? What is zazen? What are you? Yesterday, we looked at Dogen's response to what and why. For Dogen, zazen reveals the great earth's golden presence. That revealing in us, as us, ripens the sweet milk of the long rivers. Realize the golden presence, the empty, infinite radiance, and compassion naturally flows from it. Wisdom, compassion, another of those interpenetrating couplets that is not two. One reality. And keep in mind, let's keep in mind, we realize this. Dogen says, we realize it. Make real every time we sit. So today I'd like to look into this golden presence in the formless form of radiance. Radiance, dynamic and at the same time unchanging, transparent, by nature pure. That word purity, pure, keeps sort of surfacing. Radiance that shines in and through you. And that comes up again and again in the koans. First, before we go to a koan, here are two quotes, two passages that have been sort of rolling around together for the last couple of days. Together, maybe because the first passage is from Hongzhi, this master, or in Chinese, Hongzhi, one of the predecessor abbots of the temple where Dogen's Chinese master Tiantong Rujing taught, where Dogen had his body and mind falling away experience. Hongzhi compiled the Shoyoroku, the Book of Equanimity, and added a verse to each case. His teaching, it's widely available. There's a really nice book, Cultivating the Empty Field, by Dan Teigen Layton, full of Hongzhi's teaching on silent illumination, his way. So here's this passage. Withdraw now from the invisible pounding and weaving of your ingrained ideas. If you want to be rid of this invisible turmoil, You must just sit through it and let go everything. Attain fulfillment, what she says. That is, be what you are. And illuminate thoroughly. Light and shadow altogether forgotten. Drop off your own skin. And the sense dusts will be fully purified. They are. The eye then readily discerns the brightness. Radiance is another name for that brightness. The other quote, sort of rolling around with this one, is again from Dogen, from the Genjo koan we've been looking at. It's short and familiar, maybe. Dogen writes that the self advances and confirms the myriad things is called delusion. That the myriad things advance and confirm the self is called enlightenment. You don't go out there and make that bird what it is. I mean, we do that actually. We label it, we name it, we think it's out there. That's delusion. Utterly confirmed. It's going on all the time. Enlightenment, light, radiance. We don't go and get this. Awakening isn't something out there. You are the radiance, and just as you are. So as I was stringing these beads together, one more passage came up that seems particularly relevant to the case for today and to us. And this is from Mumon's preface to the Gateless Gate, or Mumonkan. He writes, Zen makes the words and the mind of Buddha its foundation. It makes no gate the gate of the Dharma. It is no gate from the start. How can we pass through it? Haven't you ever heard the old saying? And here Mumon quotes, things that come in through the gate are not family treasures. Those most intimate treasures, your true inheritance from before your parents were born. Or there's another way, translation, the family treasures do not come in through the gate. The deep peace, the unconditional joy, unconditioned freedom, this great freedom. It's not outside you, not even near or far. Suddenly this other line from Dogen comes up, the treasure chest, the treasure chamber opens by itself, and one uses the treasure freely. Or speaking, or sitting, listening. One monk who had experienced his true nature, one of these great ancestors of ours, said to his beloved Dharma sibling, when you realize this Dharma, this world, it will rise up from within your own breast to cover heaven and earth. That was actually a turning word for one ancestor. So I had this lovely, brief email exchange with Natalie last night, which sort of just leads me to frame this in this way. What if we're looking, here, practicing wholeheartedly, but looking through the eyes of great disappointment or great failure or great heartbreak or great doubt? What if that's your experience? Then let that be your eye. I just recalled the phrase that we tossed around in Q&A, to let go the witness and let experience itself enjoy the moment. Might seem strange to hold that up with great disappointment, great failure, heartbreak, doubt. Just that. Trust your life as it is. There's no place to draw a line. In its own time, that will be the portal. Right where you are, the gateless gate. The Dharma rising up through your own breast to cover earth and sky, every last speck. Shakyamuni Buddha keeps saying right now, I and all beings simultaneously attain the way. I mean, where is there attainment in that? There's nothing outside it. All together. One. Drop off your own skin. Radiance. The myriad things coming forth to confirm. Radiance. Family treasures. The whole gamut. The treasure of who you truly are. Radiance. I mean, it's a word, you could say, as we immerse here beyond words. Actually, when you see that word, just radiance, that's it. There's the radiance. So let's turn to the koan. This is Mumonkan, case 39, and the title is Unmon and a mistake in speech. There is actually no way to speak without it being a mistake. But let's look at this case. A student once asked Unmon, "Radiance serenely illuminates the whole vast universe." Before she could finish the first line, Unmon suddenly interrupted. "Aren't those the words of Chosetsu Shusai?" The student replied, "Yes, they are." Unmon said, "You have slipped up in the words." Afterward, Zen Master Sesshin brought the matter up and said, "Tell me, at what point did she slip?" That's the case. So Unmon, this preeminent master who died around the year 950, he was known for his strictness, maybe coming out of his own experience with this very strict master. And as tradition has it, awakening deeply on having his leg caught in the iron gate of the Dogen room and broken. Just that's it. He's gone. It's just pain. Even pain is a word. So he's strict in his teaching. But he also had this very skillful use of language, great appreciation for language. Sesshin is a master in the Rinzai line later than Unmon, so this is not unusual for it to be, added on. Maybe this case went out and, people responded to it. So this Sesshin had his own experience of great awakening. For him, it was on hearing the sound of the kiyosaku, that long bamboo flat stick that many zendos still use, particularly in Sesshin. It can be very helpful, but it can also, if people have experienced abuse, it can really trigger. So we don't do it. But for him, he heard that sound. Just that. And afterward, he named himself Sesshin, which means dead mind. It sounds forbidding, but it reminds me of a line from Yamada Konroshi's awakening poem. He wrote well after it, but it's really springing from his experience. And this one line is, "You see how my eyes are. They don't talk." So in the case, a student comes to Unmon quoting a beautiful verse about awakening, probably well known. Unmon lets a few words come, then steps in, just cutting off. Aren't those the words of Chosetsu Shusai? The student is thrown, suddenly faced with yes or no. Tough and revealing. Yes, the student says, an honest admission, but completely missing the insight Unmon is inviting. You have slipped up in the words. Whose words are those? How will you show it? Koans are always saying, show me. How will you show it in a way that doesn't fall into mine or yours, self or other? Whose words are those? The radiance serenely illuminates the whole vast universe. Actually, the article is extra, just radiance serenely illuminates. Not much is known about Chosetsu, but here, with the help of Unmon, he's teaching us in more ways than one. What we do know about Chosetsu Shusai is that he's persuaded by his first teacher early on to go to Master Sekiso. Somehow his teacher saw in him this potential, this capacity. We all have it, but he just somehow felt, you need to go to this Sekiso. His great master, author of this very, very beautiful poem, The Song of the Grass Hut, which is, by the way, in the appendix to that book, Cultivating the Empty Field. So he goes to Sekiso, and they have an exchange around Chosetsu's name, this first meeting. His name, his given name, Setsu, Setsu, which means unskillful. Sekiso says, though you may try to discover the substance of skillfulness, it can never be found. You say your name is Setsu, but where is the unskillfulness? This question could be addressed to us. I mean, really, it is. You're looking for perfection, or maybe just fixing, healing, absolving, improving. But where is the flaw? What is it that's lacking? Chosetsu must have been ripe for Sekiso's question. He suddenly awakens. It's just one world, and there are all these different flavors, all these portals, all these paths, myriad, 10,000 myriad. So he awakens, Chosetsu, and then soon thereafter he composes this verse. It's really all we have from him, but here it is. Radiance serenely illuminates the whole vast universe. Saints, common mortals, and other living creatures all dwell in one house. When no thought arises, total oneness is completely manifested. If the six senses move even a little bit, this total oneness, is covered with clouds. If you want to cut off delusive passions and thoughts, sickness increases all the more. If you want to go toward absolute reality, this too is wrong. In following the relations of the world, there is no hindrance. Both nirvana and life and death are no more than empty flowers. That's his poem, his experience. Nirvana, life, death, no more than empty flowers. I've been just reveling in the flowers. Thank you, Michael. Most people think nirvana is paradise, the ultimate goal. But then there's that famous phrase from Dogen on continuous practice. Between aspiration, practice, awakening, and nirvana, there is not the slightest gap. And what about life and death? Resolving the great matter. These are no more than empty flowers. You could say compared to or in light of what Chosetsu has experienced, what he's conveying. What is his experience? Radiance serenely illuminates the whole vast universe. The whole vast universe. Yamada Koan Roshi, in his commentary on this, in the Mumonkan, he has these beautiful short teisho. And in his teisho, he says, Chosetsu actually uses, if you translate it more, to the words, he writes, radiance serenely illuminates the sands of the Ganges universe. The 10,000 myriad things. It conveys this sense of this endless universe, the whole multitudinous array, the, sands of the Ganges, you couldn't possibly count them. This radiance, the golden presence we express in sitting, we realize is serenely illuminating every grain of sand, whole universe. But even that is poetic. Radiance is the whole universe. Chosetsu is sensing, experiencing. Dogen says, I'm still sitting with this. He says that we can't really see the radiance. It's invisible. Like love, this love with no object, no subject, just love. Dogen says you can't see it. But there's another kind of seeing, another kind of eye. Like that tree is my eye, that candle. We can trust the radiance is here, all pervading, and we can sense it in our sitting. And then you can explore. What is this? When I start talking about sensing, feeling, you can feel this. Ryon Roshi's voice comes up. This moo is a fact, not a feeling. I feel this, I feel that. Fact. But once you see the fact, I feel a little tired. That's it. Saints, common mortals, and other living creatures all dwell in one house. That's the principal quality of this radiance. It makes everything one. It is oneness itself. We all dwell in one house. Not just people, everything, all things. Sands of the Ganges River, one house. This is a kind of in a way, an aside, but there's a little bit of a difference, you could say, the way we say, we try to say, well, what is form emptiness? Form emptiness is just, but still, we could say there's a little different quality between this radiance and those 5 skandhas we chant about in the Heart Sutra. Form, sensation, perception, thinking, consciousness. They're all subject to cause and effect. That is, they constantly change. And so everything we experience with our 6 senses, like the Heart Sutra says, is just constantly changing. So odd. I mean, bless our hearts, but we get stuck on something. This is bad, this is good, I want, I don't want. It's changing. But the radiance is constant, pervading everything, everywhere. Always been, always will be, whatever always is, words fail. It doesn't come and go. It just is. Is. No beginning, no end, boundless everywhere. No place it doesn't reach. Right here. And in every there we might point to. This is coming up from Chosetsu's experience. So how did he find it? How did he find this extraordinary radiance that, it's not even quite right to say it makes all things one. It just, that's what it is. No separation. And he says it so clearly, how he found it. Suddenly I want to put the bar up here. When no thought arises, total oneness is completely manifest. What a direct invitation to us. The less thinking, the less sticking to thinking, adding thought onto thought, the more this total oneness will manifest. The radiance. The radiance that's there. Then Chosetsu comes up with the challenge of getting to this point of no thought. If you want to cut off delusive passions and thoughts, sickness increases all the more. We hear this in all different ways in the teachings and the koans. If the six senses, one of which is thinking, move even a little, he's saying, we don't see this oneness. But if you try to cut off delusive passions and thoughts, you go against it. The language itself is there. If I try to cut off, because then I'm trying to do something, that sense of separate self is just reinforced. A separate self that can act on, that can control something, that can make something happen. So how to still the mind without doing anything? That's wholehearted zazen. I just flashed on this wonderful moment I think it was in December. We were having a really lovely Wisdom Wednesday in the Zendo conversation. And on that evening, I had just asked, what does this practice do for you? And somehow in that moment, people just generously, openly spoke. And one person said, things come up that I can't allow, I can't accept. But this room can. Zazen itself allows thoughts to settle or to appear as completely transitory and transparent, just utterly. No problem. So the self that isn't separate, if we could call it that, the tradition calls it that, true self, the non-separate self, it just sort of comes to light, unobscured. There's nothing in the way. There really isn't anything in the way. If you want to go toward absolute reality, this too is wrong, says Chosetsu. So if we're reaching out for this radiance, I really would like to have this radiance or this experience. When is this going to come? When am I going to have this? This too is wrong. Wrong. Chosetsu says, he must have tried. So let's just recall Dogen's words. When the myriad things advance and confirm you, that's awakening. The myriad things awaken us. So it's delusion for us to be advancing as if we could, confirming, going out, making things be. That concept. Oh, what we miss. It's still pretty wonderful. By that I mean just being on the way, even the missing, mistake after mistake. Chosetsu goes on, in following the relations of the world, there's no hindrance, just following constant change, trusting in constant change, going with its flow. And there's no hindrance, nothing in the way. Again, we hear that in the Heart Sutra, no hindrance of mind, therefore no fear. Because there's nothing. There's nothing to fear. We resist this constant change and suffer. But even that is not apart from this radiance. So finally, Chosetsu comes to his great resolution, the great matter. Nirvana and life and death are no more than empty flowers. This insight, this confidence flows from the experience of radiance, that no separation, absolute oneness. Nirvana, life, death, not separate. We ourselves and the universe are not separate. Self, other, nirvana, life, death, empty flowers. So key, this zero. So of course, one. Oh boy. I wanted to share something just for a moment. I'll try to be quick. It just came up while I was sitting with this talk for today. When many of you know that in May I went to Sonnenhof for 4 weeks, and 4 weeks of Sesshin, beautiful place, so quiet, remote, way up in the mountains. And about the third weekend we had finally like a really sunny, clear day. It had been so cool and rainy, wonderful. And I started walking on a break. I had gone to this Sesshin with a koan, sort of, knowing I would be teaching, knowing I would be meeting students, but just kind of for myself. This koan that comes up in the curriculum more than one time, and then again and again. Where will you go after you die? So I'm walking up this path, question sort of back there somewhere, and all of a sudden there was this field of tall, slender green grass and tall, slender, tiny little orange wildflowers on these green grass stalks, just the whole side of the mountain up to the trees. And you know how you see something and it just suddenly emblazoned just that. And in that moment, suddenly it was like this little glass ball, life, death, just turned. And the field went utterly transparent. And immediately came the thought, that is death. And then, to my surprise, is that enough? It was so beautiful. It seems, just that. But is that enough? And as soon as the question, sort of came up, the enough just dissolved. I walked a little farther and went back and went on with the afternoon. And later, as the evening light was coming on, somehow this flashed on this. I mean, it's right now. And the thought came, I wish I'd had my phone with me. We leave those devices. Could have taken a picture. Such a beautiful field. And immediately came this sense. Had I taken a picture on opening it, it would have been blank. Radiance runs through everything like a thread. Like that's what a sutra is, a thread. And we just can't be separate from it. Whatever time, it can't be separate. Time being, all time, now, that experience, now. Unmon. And this student slipping up, and us slipping up now. We can't divide our life. Before I was born, birth to death, death onward, you just can't divide this radiance. And it doesn't discriminate. It's now, it's you, and it's completely empty. So I'll close with just a very short Dharma Hall discourse from Dogen. He wrote, he would have said this to his monks in the Dharma Hall. Everybody has their own radiant light. The Buddha Hall and the Monks Hall can never be destroyed. Now I ask you, where do you all come from? And he answers, the radiant light allows the radiant light to respond. There it is. Thank you for listening, and thank you for this shared practice.